begin tonight's Board of Trustees meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Honor our fallen servicemen and women, and also the victims of the Ukraine war. Tonight we will begin with the annual organizational meeting. The newly elected trustees will take their oaths of office, which will be administered by Village Justice Alan Mathers. After the swearing in, I will make several trustee appointments. Upon completing the appointments, we will then proceed with our normal board meeting protocol. This time I would like to open up our annual organizational meeting and now call upon Village Clerk Karen Altman to report the results of the March 15th village election.
Thank you, Mayor. The March 15th election results are as follows, and they're all for trustee for 2-year terms. Mary Carter Flanagan, 1,667 votes. Charles P. Kelly, 1,480 votes. Bruce A. Torino, 1,490 votes. And Lawrence N. Marciano Jr., 1,466 votes. And I'd like to congratulate all and welcome all, and I look forward to working with the whole board.
Thank you, Karen. I would now like to invite Village Justice Alan Mathers to the dais to administer the oaths of office to the newly elected trustees. First will be trustees Mary Carter Flanagan, second will be Charles P. Kelly, third will be Lawrence N. Marciano Jr., and last will be Bruce A. Torino. Please come up.
All together? Why don't you do it all together? Makes it better, sir. Easier for me. If you hear me say, support and defend the Constitution of the United States, I still have the legal authority as a Title X officer to swear people into the military. So if I say defend, be very careful.
Against all enemies, foreign and
domestic. Now, you know it, and if any of the officers pointed over me. If you raise your hand, please. And repeat after me. I solemnly swear. To defend, no. To support the Constitution of the United States.
To support the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the State of New York.
The Constitution of the State of New York.
And to faithfully discharge. My duties as a trustee of the Village of Garden City.
My duties as a trustee of the Village of Garden City.
Nassau County, New York.
Nassau County, New York.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I declare you, by the power vested in me by the State of New York as the Village Justice of Garden City, duly elected. Congratulations.
Full board and then I think Trustee Kelly's family. trustee Kelly's family.
The Kelly family. Sorry. Guys?
We're good, thanks. Camera shot?
Are there any other families from trustees in the audience? Thank you. I want to thank trustee Mary Carter Flanagan on being re-elected to another term, and I wish to offer my congratulations to other trustees Charles P. Kelly, Lawrence N. Marciano Jr., and Bruce A. Torino. I wish you all good luck as trustees of our village. I would also like to recognize and thank the sitting trustees for their support and the time they have expended over the past year. I know we've had a lot of work to do in the upcoming months, and I look forward to working with the new board of trustees. I'd like to make some appointments going forward to get the trustees involved in the matters of the village. Deputy Mayor Thomas J. O'Brien, you'll be continuing. Thank you. You're terminated. No. Fire Commissioner will be Bruce A. Torino, given his wealth of experience. Environmental Advisory Board trustee will be Mary Carter Flanagan to continue her great work. The Zoning Change Review Committee will be comprised of Charles P. Kelly, Bruce A. Torino, H. Bradford Gustafson, John G. Villanella, and William Elise, architect. Right? It will comprise the Zoning Change Review Committee. Village historian will continue to be William Belmar. Is he here today? The Public Works Liaison, Bruce Chesney, will continue that role. Thank you very much for the years of service so far. Board of Commissioners and Cultural and Recreational Affairs will be Thomas J. O'Brien again, continuing that role. The Board of Police Commissioner will change. This time will be Thomas O'Brien again, as part of the Board of Police Commissioner with Kenneth Jackson and Ralph Swazi. Traffic Commission will be Charles P. Kelly, Lawrence N. Marciano Jr., Terrence Deegan, and Mary Carter Flanagan, with Kenneth Jackson and a DPW designee to be determined. The Finance and Audit Committee will be comprised of Terrence Deegan as chairman, Bruce Chester, and Lawrence N. Marciano Jr. The committee to fill vacancies on boards and commissions will be myself and Deputy Mayor. Legal Committee will change. Will be Charles P. Kelly as the chairman and Bruce A. Torino. The Public Information Committee, Public Information and Village Press Releases and Statements will be Thomas O'Brien, Charles P. Kelly, and myself. The official newspaper for the village will continue to be the Garden City News. There's one other appointment, a few other appointments I want to make. One is the library liaison will be Lawrence N. Marciano Jr. will be the new library liaison. And the Third Track Committee will be, again, Bruce Chester, chairman, Richard Carrera, Paul Rothenbiller, James Kumpel, Elaine Smith-Lawler, Richard Catalano, and Stephen Florence. The Board of Ethics, there's a slight change. Richard Carrera will be involved with Ryan Torino and Allison Metzler. And the liaison to the Chamber of Commerce will be determined at a later date. I ask for a motion to approve the foregoing at this time.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, motion is approved. We will now proceed with the public hearing regarding the budget. I now ask for a motion to open the public hearing with regard to the tentative budget for the year 2022-2023.
I'll make a motion that we open that.
Do I have a second? Motion. The public hearing is now open. Before I ask the citizens for comments, do any of the trustees have anything to say regarding the budget?
Legislation very quickly, a great job by Irene, Ralph, all the department heads getting all the information together, and I think it was a very smooth and easy process, I think.
I'll second that. Good work.
Any other trustees?
Ditto for me as well.
Are there any citizens here in person or either on Zoom that wish to speak regarding the tentative budget? Hearing no further comments, I now ask for a motion to close the public hearing on the budget.
I'll make a motion we close.
Do I have a second? Flanagan? The motion, no nays, all yeas?
All in favor?
All in favor? Motion passes. At this time, do I hear a motion that pursuant to section 5-508 of the New York State Village Law, that the following budget of estimated revenues and expenditures of the Village of Garden City for the fiscal year June 1, 2022 to May 31st, 2023 is hereby approved and adopted as filed. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion?
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. The budget is adopted as filed. The next order of business is another budget resolution regarding the collection of taxes under this budget. The motion is as follows. Whereas a budget of estimated revenues and expenditures of the Village of Garden City for the fiscal year June 1, 2022 to May 31st, 2023 was adopted by the Board of Trustees at this meeting following a public hearing pursuant to section 5-508 of the village law, and B, taxes in the amount of $53,273,520 are required for the purpose of meeting the proposed expenditures provided herein for such budget, and C, it has been further determined that such taxes be apportioned against all the taxable property in the Village of Garden City as set forth on the 2022 assessment roll at the rate of $50.1725 on each $100 of assessed valuation therein, except properties of the Loyal Railroad Company, which shall be taxed in accordance with the provisions of the real property tax law. Therefore, now be it resolved that pursuant to the provisions of section 1420 of the real property tax law, the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to extend and carry out on such roll the amount to be collected from the owners of properties listed herein and so specified above. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution? Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is adopted. Thank you. The next order of business is another budget resolution regarding the fixing of the tax rate under this budget. The resolution is as follows. A, that pursuant to section 1420 of the real property tax law, the following funds necessary to meet the obligations of the Village of Garden City for the fiscal year June 1, 2022 to May 31st, 2023 be raised by levy of tax on all taxable property in the Village of Garden City, as set forth on the 2022 assessment roll of the Village for the assessment roll completed on April 1st, 2022. The total amount of the budget for fiscal year beginning June 1st, 2022, May 31st, 2023, as adopted by the Board of Trustees for the public hearing held on April 4th, 2022, today, is $65,393,358. The appropriated surplus is $1,676,777. Less the estimated amount of revenues for 2022-23 in the amount of $10,443,061. Leaves a balance to be raised by tax levy in the amount of $53,273,520. That the tax rate for the collection of said village tax levy be fixed at 50.1725 per $100 of assessed valuation of such taxable property. that said taxes shall be collected in 2 equal installments pursuant to the provisions of Section 1434 of the Real Property Tax Law, the first installment to become due and payable June 1st, 2022, and the second installment to become due and payable December 1st, 2022. And that pursuant to subdivision 2 of Section 1434 of the Real Property Tax Law, a discount of 1%, being at the rate of 2% per annum, be allowed on the payment of the second half of the 2022 village tax due on December 1st, 2022, provided the same is paid prior to June 30th, simultaneously with the first half of such tax that is due and payable on June 1st, 2022. And that the mayor be, and he hereby is authorized to execute and deliver to the village clerk a warrant directing him to proceed with the collection of such taxes as provided in Article 14 of the Real Property Tax Law. That was a mouthful. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I've been making them all night.
Do I have a second motion? All in favor? The motion is adopted. At this time, we will continue with the Board of Trustees meeting and call upon the department heads, beginning with Commissioner Jackson. Good evening, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations to all the trustees. I have number 7 on the agenda, grant acceptance. The police department utilizes a fingerprint and photograph machine, but it's correlated with the New York State DCJS, the Division of Criminal Justice Services, and the federal government. It's antiquated and to be compatible with all the regulations of the federal, state, and local governments, so we would like to be able to purchase a new one, and we were able to procure a grant for over $11,300 towards that purchase. I'd just like to also bring up one other thing, well actually 2 other things. One will be the, in 2019, the police department joined Nassau County, Westchester, and Suffolk County in a shared services agreement for purchase of vehicles. And we did buy 3 vehicles that year, and now we are getting a reimbursement for over $7,000 for the purchase of those vehicles. That's an agreement with the shared services, so it's like an award that we got back. So the village will be receiving that shortly. And just one other item, over the weekend in Nassau County, there was numerous stolen cars throughout the county, as well as 2 in Garden City. In most cases, there's a key fob left in the car. Again, I ask everyone to lock their vehicles at night and take the fob with them. It's very important. These people are very educated on what cars to look for and what the signs are, but the key fobs are in the car, and they are stealing them throughout the tri-state area. So please lock your cars. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner, just have one quick question. Are there still a lot of burglaries going on around Nassau County?
There's been a few burglaries in Nassau County. It has lowered a little bit since the holiday season, but they are, again, we ask everybody to utilize their lights and their alarms, especially when they're at home, even if they go out just for a couple minutes. But there have been some burglaries on the North Shore and also in the eastern Nassau County, and sometimes they do move around. So please, again, just like your cars, lock up, leave the lights on, TV, music, anything that could, sway somebody not going in the house.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Fire Chief Moody.
Good evening, Mayor. Trustees, congratulations to the new trustees as well. Deputy Mayor, thank you for serving as Fire Commissioner in the last year. I'm looking forward to working with Trustee Torino as the new Fire Commissioner. I have nothing on the agenda, Mayor. I just want to let you know that we did respond to 78 alarms last month, in the month of March. So we had 67 signal H, which is automatic alarms, and 4 general alarms reporting some type of fire, smoke in a structure. And then we had 4 extrication calls and 3 mutual aids to neighboring departments.
Sounds like you're busy.
Yeah. Good work to you and the department. And I would just want to let you know what an honor and pleasure it is to serve you and the other chiefs. You guys do a great job, and I really enjoy working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Irene Wu, Treasurer.
Yes.
How are you?
Good. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'd also like to welcome all the new trustees. I look forward to working with you all. On the agenda, I have a finance item for unpaid sidewalk repairs and property maintenance. So we're requesting board authorization to adopt resolutions to place unpaid sidewalk repairs and high grass bills on village taxes if they remain unpaid within the next few weeks. As of today, we did receive a couple of payments, but unpaid sidewalk repair bills total about $70,945, and the high grass bills remain at $1,136.25. The second item on the agenda is a transfer of funds that was requested by Village Administrator Ralph Swazi. We will discuss that item a little bit more later on. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Police Superintendent,
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees, new trustees, welcome to the board, congratulations. I have nothing on the formal agenda, Mayor. I just wanted to bring the board up to speed on the two projects that we have going on. The Edgemere Fire Station 2, the contractor is progressing well. They actually removed all the items from the Station 2, and they're going to start basically with the environmental of the abatement project. They started setting up the decon today, and they're going to start abating starting tomorrow, I believe. The next project is St. Paul's. They were supposed to mobilize this week, but because of the inclement weather this week, they're probably going to postpone it and start mobilizing next week on the roofing project.
The roofing project.
Roofing project, yes.
And that's a temporary roof.
It's a temporary roof, and the warranties for 3 years on that project. But hopefully they'll take care of the whole entire roof and make this project watertight as far as the building. And lastly, I just want to remind everybody here tonight and everybody on Zoom that the amnesty program is going. It's going to July 1st. So if you have permits if you have construction built without permits, please come on in and save the fees. That's it. Any other questions the board may have? Be happy to answer.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Recreation Commissioner Paul Blake. How are you?
Terrific, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to all the new trustees, and congratulations. We all look forward to working with you. Recreation has one item on the agenda tonight. It's number 11. It is the award of bid to replace the main liner at Community Park Pool Number 1. This went out to public bid. We had budgeted $275,000 for it, and the price came in at $228,379. The contractor is Natari Corporation. They are the manufacturer of the liner, so we won't be dealing with any subcontractors. We're going directly to the company that makes the liner. And again, a thank you to Village Treasurer Irene Wu for arranging to use funds from the American Rescue Plan Act. That's all we have on the agenda, but I would like to let everybody know that Saturday is GCAA Little League opening day, so watch out for those little ball players running around through your neighborhoods.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any comments from the trustees? Okay, thank you very much.
Well, just one quick question. Remember we were working on the date for Sacred Heart Ask for that 5K run, I think it was. Did that get all worked out?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much, Paul. Next, Peter B. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, and congratulations to all the newly elected trustees. I look forward to working with all of you. Mayor, I have no one item on the agenda, as is often the case. I've worked with most of the department heads on their separate items, but nothing specifically from Council's office.
Thank you. Last but not least, Mr. Ralph Swanson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. Congratulations to the new trustees. Item number 2 on finance, Mrs. Wu mentioned a transfer $65,000 to building maintenance and plan from contingent to fund needed items such as the library door sensors, the library septic system replacement, booster fans in Village Hall basement, electrical upgrades at Village Hall, the stairs at the police department. Just for education, except for the enterprise funds of pool, tennis, and water, the maintenance plant is taken out of the DPW line, and we're out of funds. The items I just mentioned, except for the staircase, is already totaling $14,000. There's a couple of items we're waiting for prices on, so I just want to put money in the account to get us to the end of the year, but we don't use those back into surplus. Public Works, number 8, change order. The board authorization is requested to approve change order number 1, submitted by Dominic Mechanical Corp. to provide electrical drawings for the design of the HVAC system at Village Hall at a cost of $8,500. These designs need to complete the specifications for the new HVAC system. So those are drawings, panels, and breakers for the new system. Number 9, the transfer of funds and engagement of professional services. We want $35,000 authorized to fund L.K. McLean Associates, also known as LKMA, for professional services. And Board of Authorization is also requested to approve the proposal submitted by LKMA to provide a sidewalk survey of Stewart Avenue between Franklin and Clinton Road. Item number 10 and 9 are directly related. We also want to ask you to authorize LKMA to design the resurfacing of Stewart Avenue from Franklin Avenue to Clinton Road for a lump sum fee of $27,030. So the first one is $6,000 change. This one is $27,000, approximately $33,000. That's where 35 transfer comes from. That is all I have on the agenda. Mayor, any other questions I'll take? And there's a couple of items I think the board's going to discuss in regards to the Franklin court fence.
Yes, I mean, do you have any comments from the trustees? I don't have a comment. Okay, McLean Associates, are they an engineering group?
Yes, we're an engineering group. Just to refresh everyone's memory, months ago, around May or June of last year, I asked the board if I could use some of the open position salaries to fund engineering services. I put out RFPs to 8 engineering firms on Long Island, and for 5 different professional areas, and LKMA was assigned the one that we're using for this project.
You want to discuss the fence?
So there's 2 items, Mayor. The fence at Franklin Court was a fence that was put up on an open space. That property, the open space property, was transferred to a private group that lived there. Mr. B might have more detailed explanations, but later on it was put up. It was sold to private individuals. They put a fence up, and then later on the board bought it back, and they decided to leave the fence there. It was revisited some months later, maybe up to a year later, and the fence was remaining there. So the question has come up, should we remove the fence? I've spoken to Mr. Blake about it. He has to send an employee over there every day to open up and close it at night. It's really, I feel, and I think he feels that's not unnecessary to have the fence there. I'd like to remove it, but it's a board decision since the board voted on it originally. So that's basically the understanding.
Mayor, I would only add that ordinarily this would not rise to the level of a board action, but the property in question and the fence in question were a matter of some controversy at the time, and there was a specific board vote indicating that at that time the board elected not to remove the fence. So while ordinarily the erection or the removal of a fence would just be left to the department, the individual department and the direction of the mayor as the chief executive of the village, I had recommended that this go back to the board for a vote because it was a formal vote of the board to leave the fence up at a prior occasion.
So that we have a vote tonight, to vote to remove the fence?
Just one question, Ralph. The fence, is there an opening there, like, in the fence, like it's deteriorated, or?
I believe the fence was actually fully locked and secured, but there's been some damage to it, and Mr. Blake, if we were to keep it up, we'd have like a $3,500 expense to repair it.
Yeah, we have, fence was damaged in a storm. 2 sections are pretty well crumpled. And the first estimate we got was about $3,600 to repair it. And I expect the next estimate is going to be in that same ballpark. And it does have a gate on it, and normally when the fence is up and complete, we do send an employee there in the morning to open it, and then again at night to lock it.
There was also discussion at the time that most of the village parks have fences, but this was not deemed a village park. It was merely village open space, and I would say most of the open space within the village does not have a fence.
This came up actually at a meet and greet that some of us were at, where residents came in and expressed really the negative impact they felt that the fence had on the community there. It was compelling. I don't know if there's anyone to say otherwise. I think it's, good to have this on the agenda in case there's anyone in the Franklin News area who's in favor of the fence. But what we heard, the feedback we heard was all that they wish for the fence to be taken down.
Yeah, I mean, to waste village manpower to open and close the fence, and there's a gaping hole, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And the residents that did speak at the Green Meet did want it down, so I'm in favor of taking it down as fast as possible.
So, anyone here in the audience or on Zoom who has anything to say about it, who lives in the area, who would be opposed to taking it down? No one, Karen, on Zoom?
Any comments?
I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Yeah, Trustee Kelly, the fence should be removed without commenting on the history of it.
I concur, and there is a very large opening. I don't believe the yellow cone would stop anybody from going in and out, but, so, the idea of having fences around the parks is more for the security of the children or the people who are playing there. St. Paul's did not have a fence around it for decades, and the fence that went in front of it along Stewart was to keep the soccer balls or the lacrosse balls from going into the streets. And we did not, as a village, put a fence there until after the school district did. So if the purpose of the fence is to keep people in or out or to be safe, I really don't see a purpose in it. So I concur with the thought process of removing it and returning it back to the original form that it was before whatever happened.
Which is open space.
Mayor, then you may wish to entertain a motion to authorize the department staff to remove the fence in the usual course of business.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to remove the fence.
Is there a second?
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. I agree. Thank you very much.
Mayor, I have one other question that I mentioned to you earlier today, that the question of the Stewart Field overflow parking on the north end of the field. There's been some questions brought up about the need for it. I won't.
Raymond Court?
Raymond Court, right here. So, so if anyone wants a history, I will give it to you. But the question is, with Little League starting on Saturday, do we want to do counts, parking counts and studies with the condition as it is now, or would the board prefer that we take the signs down immediately and lock up the overflow parking, which is the pre-construction condition? We have to do one or the other, but without guidance from the board, we're kind of like...
I've only heard adverse comments about that parking lot. I haven't heard anything in favor of keeping it open. The residents of Raymond Court are pretty upset. They're pretty, they feel it's a dangerous situation with the overflow parking, people parking on the, trying to get into the parking area, parking on their driveways, on the street. So again, I think the residents have spoken to us, I think it's at the meetings already, about this. I would remove the signage to start, to see what happens, close the parking lot, and see, and determine what happens after the first week of Little League.
And consistent with that, when we say remove the signage, I believe we're referring to two signs. The one in the Stewart Avenue parking lot that refers people to the north end of Raymond Court, and the large one at the entrance to Raymond Court, on the east side at the entrance, that large one, which we believe should say, or I believe should say at some point, dead end, no access. And that would resolve the signage issue, with the exception that the sign in the Stewart Avenue parking lot, I believe, should say, refer people to the Clinton Road Stewart School parking lot. And what's essential is, although I've measured it many times, even if the gates from the Stewart Avenue, Stewart School parking lot are locked. It's approximately, for an old man like me, about a 4-minute walk if I walk around Stewart School. However, I hope that Recreation, the village administrator, and whoever else is involved will make sure that at least the pedestrian entrance gate from the Stewart School parking lot is open so that people may enter the fields that way. At that point, if the pedestrian gate is open, it adds about a 90-second walk if you have to walk to the Stewart Avenue parking lot. If the second tier of gates, there's a gate when you enter the fields from the Stewart School parking lot. But there's also gates, sort of in a semicircle, that surround the fields down there. And they have 3 locked gates. Now, I would think that the keys to those gates must be under the control of Parks and Recreation, because they have nothing to do with the school. They have to do with access to those far fields. But obviously, the best of all worlds is if the gate from the Stewart School parking lot is unlocked, just the pedestrian gate. There's a gate for vehicles there, work vehicles or something, but that doesn't have to be open. Although it has been on the last few weekends, for some reason, unlocked. But the second tier of gates, if those 3 are open, everybody has a shorter walk to every field than they'd have from the Stewart Avenue parking lot. It's always going to be a shorter walk from the Raymond Court parking lot to the first field because you park at the dugout, which is everybody's dream, parking at the dugout. But those second tier of gates, I don't know who controls them. I've never seen them open over the winter, but there's 3 individual gates, and if those can be open, then it's quicker access from the Stewart School parking lot to the fields. But the one thing I think is essential for a fair measure to be taken is that that one gate from the Stewart School parking lot has to be unlocked so that people can walk straight from their cars to the fields. They don't have to walk around the school, which, as I said, would add about 4 minutes to their walk. And I'm not saying that's undoable. I'm just saying let's make it as convenient as possible so that this study can be done as fairly as possible. Because it's likely that the 30 spaces in the Stewart Avenue lot combined with the 82 spaces in the Stewart School parking lot more than cover the needs of parking, with the one proviso: if that pedestrian gate is open from the Stewart School parking lot into the field, then none of the children have to walk on the sidewalk around the school. They just walk right onto the fields.
We control that.
The 3 gates, Trustee Kelly, that you mentioned on the ball field, they are locked and opened by Recreation during the season. We do keep them locked during the winter, but when the season opens, we do open those gates. The gate up at the Stewart School parking lot, however, is controlled by the school district, and we do not have access to their keys or their locks, so we will put a call over to Dr. Sinha and request that they keep that gate open so folks can access the fields.
That'll be great, because I think that'll make it much safer for everybody who parks in the Stewart School parking lot and give us a fair measure of the availability of parking as we begin the Little League season. Thank you.
Ralph, who in the village will be monitoring this if we close off that parking lot?
Well, Mr. Blake and I spoke about this late last week and again today. Basically, he would have people who work for Recreation who would monitor the parking field, the southern parking field, to see how quickly it fills up. The signs Mr. Kelly talked about, we can take down the additional parking sign, but I'm not sure if we can get a nice sign directed people to Stewart School that quickly, but we can certainly work on that. But I think, and I don't know if the police have a role in this as well. possibly monitoring Raymond Court. Also, if he calls Dr. Sinha, Superintendent of Schools, there may be an insurance issue while they lock the gate. Maybe they might ask us to name the school as an insured party on our policy so that anyone parking there gets hurt.
Is there any agreement, Peter?
Yes, Mayor, the village is actually a party to a 10-year lease agreement with the county, which actually owns the land itself. And under the terms of the 10-year lease, and I might add, the village has an option to extend it for an additional 10 years, the purpose of the lease is recited as to provide additional parking for that ball field. And there are obligations on the part of the village in connection with the maintenance of the premises, and that any work that is done there requires a work plan that is approved by the county before the work commences. There are a number of issues of that nature. I'm hearing a discussion that could conceivably lead to a desire on the part of the board to terminate the lease. I don't know whether you're at that point, but I would recommend that you authorize me to explore what might be necessary in order to terminate the lease if that's the direction you're headed, rather than a vote to terminate. I don't know that we have that right under the lease agreement. And we do, as I said, have certain obligations. The county may wish us to continue to maintain those premises under the terms of the lease. So I can certainly look into that on your behalf.
Right. So I guess, Charlie, you're recommending that the test period where we close the parking lot and see what happens?
Yes, I mean, that's the first step to find out, because it seems if you look at just the number of spaces, and if the Parks Commissioner or Village Administrator is successful in getting that pedestrian gate open from the Stewart School parking lot, then you have there's more spaces in the Stewart School parking lot than there are in the other two combined. And once we make it convenient and accessible, I think it's frankly a much easier parking lot, Stewart School parking lot, to get in and out of than the Raymond Court North parking lot.
No, I agree. I think it's a good idea. I think also I want to provide relief to those residents on Raymond Court.
Absolutely,
Who are
yes.
going to be inundated probably within a year with 55 Stewart traffic.
Yes, I mean, they're in a difficult situation as it is, and it would be nice if we could make their day-to-day lives a little easier, especially when there's athletic events held, because we all heard from those people who reside there what they were telling us about what it's like and how they keep their children inside and so on and so forth.
Mayor, it may be that the county's interests are much more, the lease document is almost bifurcated. We wanted the property at the time for parking, but what the county wanted was the historical maintenance of the motor parkway area with signage, etc. I suspect, without speaking on their behalf, that the county is much more interested in the village maintaining that historical signage and the motor parkway area. I would be surprised, but it's their right to comment on whether or not the village wants to keep using the parking lot as a parking lot.
So you say maybe we turn it into a historic amenity?
Yes, sir. As I said, the lease required that the village put up certain historical signage and promote the area as an historical site, in exchange for which the county was allowing us to use that area as a parking lot. So it may be that the county is willing to terminate the lease entirely, or they may be willing to allow us to do the construction work, whatever physical things are there to designate it as a parking lot, and simply leave it as the historical site. But if the board wishes me to do so, I will explore that with the county.
I have a comment or question, if we can. Since we're possibly kicking this off, Little League opens this weekend, right? So I think we should have somebody there to help direct traffic for those that are going to turn into that street. So between Commissioner Jackson and Paul and Ralph, could we put something together so that we don't get a total backup onto Stewart Avenue for safety? Because a lot of people won't know that it's going to be possibly closed.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, one more caveat on the school gate. One of the reasons that they locked that gate was to keep unauthorized groups from accessing their fields. So I'm sure that's going to come up when I have my discussion with Superintendent Sinha. But just to make you aware that that was a concern of the district. They were having a lot of people out on the field, no permits, no insurance, and I think it was a concern.
Well, I'm happy that we're having the study now. The study should have been done before, right? So now we're studying it right now, so I think we should pursue this and make sure everybody's safe.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, just as an aside, if we can publish the information to the residents, either by the mayor's column or a diagram on the front page of the Garden City News saying park here and park there.
With big arrows.
Yeah, and that would disabuse anybody from using Raymond Court and then having to turn around.
I was gonna ask Ralph, can you get those signs down within a week? Yeah, that would
We
alleviate.
may want to use the, ask the GCAA, whoever runs the league, to send out, shoot out an email and let people know too, so they don't all go to park there.
It's a good idea. It's only the Garden City Athletic
Who's
Association.
using it in the spring?
It's GCA Little League on Saturdays, and it's Thunder Lacrosse on Sundays. So we will get word out to both of those organizations tomorrow morning.
Great, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anthony?
One thing I would note is that unless someone gets the image that the Stewart School fields adjacent to Stewart School are always sealed by gates. I've only been there about 25 times in the last few months, but the gate from the Stewart Avenue parking lot onto those fields has been open every time I've gone there, and that's never been closed. I just mentioned that.
Any other comments on trustees? No? Else? Anything else? Very good.
No, at the direction of the mayor, I can explore that option and then report back to the mayor and the board.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
I will consider myself so directed, Mayor.
You have that direction, Peter. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any citizen comments on agenda items? Please state your name and address. Please come up.
Steve Alani, Meadow Street. Is that Raymond Court parking lot an agenda item?
I don't think it was it? No, I don't think it's listed, Steve.
No comments on that from?
Number 11.
Oh, this is number 11.
Yes, sir.
Yes. You can make a comment.
Thank you.
I'm not going to
I mean,
Oh, 17.
at the time, personally, I have no skin in the game, but, you know, that decision to make a parking lot there wasn't done in a vacuum, contrary to some popular belief. People used to park, and I, myself included when my kids were young and played there, up and down Raymond Court. There's no curbs, you park half on the sidewalk because there are cars on both sides of the street. So, you know, that was part of it. Part of it was people parking on the other side of Stewart Avenue and crossing. I believe that, you know, the commissioner had some safety concerns at the time. I'm not sure, I don't want to speak for him. But there were safety issues on Raymond Court when people would be making U-turns and parking up and down. So I don't know if any decisions you're making here tonight limits any parking on Raymond Court itself. Because if it doesn't, understood that people might not be speeding to get to the parking lot, but they will still be going in and out of Raymond Court, making U-turns and parking up and down the street. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, any other comments on agenda items? Please step up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees, and congratulations to the newly elected trustees. I'm here to speak about item number 1 on the agenda, the Chamber rent. My name is Dennis Donnelly, I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I did forward some information to the trustees at the request of some trustees. The rent to the village by the Chamber was $300 a month in 2002 and slowly increased to $465 in 2021. In response to the pandemic, the trustees at the time reduced the rent to $100 a month. The rental agreement with the village expired at the end of November 2021. Just as background, the Chamber is a not-for-profit corporation under section 501c6 of the Internal Revenue Code. We file taxes every year, and we are audited by a CPA firm. But two tax returns plus a profit and loss statement were forwarded to the village at the village's request under total transparency. The mayor commented in last week's paper about the income of the chamber, but did not comment on the expense side. The mayor said that the chamber agreed to $1,000 a month rent. And we can find no document that says that. Althea Robinson, who was the director of the chamber back in the days when they moved the building, does not remember any $1,000 payments for rent. In 1989, when they moved the chamber, the chamber was busy paying off 12 bank loans that came from the moving of the toll house. Those eventually were forgiven, but the chamber for the first 5 years was paying them off. The mayor's comments on, also made some comments on the chamber salaries. The chamber salaries, my salary at the chamber is $57,000. I took the same salary that Althea Robinson got when she was the executive director, which has gone up a little since then. Since January of this year, the chamber has no salaries. Because of the financial condition we're in, nobody is on salary. The mission of the chamber is to provide for the economic vitality of the business community and the residential community as well. The casino, the Historical Society, both membership organizations pay no rent. The chamber is required to pay rent. The Turkey Trot, St. Joe's Run, the Garden City Teachers Run, no charge. No charge for the Jay Gallagher or Andy Foundation, no charge for the Little League Parade, the Memorial Day Parade. What is the criteria for charging and not charging? We do maintain the toll lodge, both internally and externally, and for all 33 years, it's been quite expensive to maintain the historic building. We put in a new gas burner, new bathroom floor, we've restored the historic windows, we've done exterior painting, we have to have a gardener because the village doesn't take care of the property, and we have all the bills that a business would have, National Grid, lighting, etc. So I would ask the trustees for equity and to consider the material I provided as well as what I said today. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board, I think we should discuss this. Okay. I don't know if the position of the Chamber of Commerce is that the taxpayers should be subsidizing it or not, but I certainly don't see the moral or social equivalence between an organization like the casino that welcomes any resident to join and is open to all residents with the Chamber of Commerce, which of course is an organization devoted to the businesses in town. And the threshold issue I have is that question, because before we can embark on a mathematical analysis, we need to know, is it the job of the taxpayers to be subsidizing the Chamber of Commerce?
Just to comment myself, Mr. Donnelly, you mentioned that there were no salaries being taken. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you indicated that you were not taking a salary since January. Also, this comp, $41,895. What does that encompass?
The which now, I'm sorry?
$41,895 is down. Is that additional part of the payroll?
That additional salary was for a second person.
Okay.
There's no salaries at all anymore.
All right. Okay, I understand that now, but I was just curious what the 41,000 was.
Yeah, that's the second salary.
Okay. As you know, our chamber is very unique as opposed to other communities. Whether it be Westbury Park Place, Mineola, Wilson Park, there's no executive director. The dues are pretty low, from 150 to 100. And I always know it's been unique for Garden City to do it the way we do with an executive director. I just think expenses is an area that maybe we can look at. I understand that 2020 was a rough year, and we certainly want to do whatever we can to help the businesses in town. But I think that's, in terms of lowering maybe payroll, whatever, I think would be a good idea. How many hours a week do you put in, would you say, for the chamber?
In excess of 40.
So per week, you put in about 40 hours per week, you would say?
That'd be very fair, both of us.
Yeah, because it doesn't indicate that on the return, but I guess that's how they drew it up. Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Just to comment on Trustee Kelly's comment, the chamber is available to any resident, which we have residents that are members. And I believe the casino is open to all residents, but you gotta pay to get in. You gotta pay to be a member. And the chamber puts on free events for the residents of the village all year long. So that's how I would put the two together.
Just one other question, I'm sorry. How does your dues structure work?
The structure is by size of business.
Okay.
So an individual is $60. Almost all the members are $200. If you're a very big company, it goes all the way up to $800, and there are only a very few of those.
So a small store with like 2 or 3 employees would be?
$200.
About $200, okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Donnelly, I have a question. You said that you don't understand where the $1,000 per month fee came from. Well, I received this information from the village clerk and village attorney. When you look at the lease agreement, it says there's a fee of $1,000 that was charged to the Chamber of Commerce in 1988. Are you aware of that?
In 1980, I'm not aware of that. I am aware that the chamber paid some rent that was $1,000 because they were 8 months in arrears on rent. But I would tell you, in 1988, the budget of the Chamber of Commerce was about $20,000. So to think that they would agree to $1,000 a month, it just is I don't think, fathomable.
Well, that's what the lease agreement says. It was $1,000 per month payment. I'm not making this up. This is in writing. Am I correct, Peter?
I don't have that document in front of me, but I believe I supplied some of that documentation to you.
Yeah.
That they paid $1,000 a month all year long, or one time?
No, that the document existed.
Well, I've never seen the document, and I find it incredible because the chamber in 1989 owed 12 banks bank loans that they would agree to something. They couldn't even pay off the bank loans. I mean, I was not there at the time, but.
Mr. Donnelly, I didn't write the agreement. I'm just telling you what the agreement says. Right? So again, you have to be clear about what you're saying. It says in the agreement it was $1,000 per month fee charged to the Chamber of Commerce, excluding utilities. That was a license agreement that the village had. That's what
Well,
it says.
we have license agreements since then.
Okay.
that were,
You know if it was revised? I'm not sure if it,
I'm
was that
sorry?
original license agreement revised?
we've negotiated new license agreements with Council B on multiple occasions.
Do you have any information you can provide?
Again, I believe I have copies of all of the license agreements between the chamber and the village, and as does the clerk. I don't have them in front of me, but I do have copies of all of those agreements. I don't know if the clerk might have them with her this evening.
Okay.
What was the year the building was moved? Because was there, and I'm looking here, was there some agreement where they could take credit for, does anyone have the specifics as to whether 1,000 was actually paid or whether that went towards, they could take credit for the payments they were making on the relocation of the building?
All of that information is obtainable. I simply don't have all of the documentation in front of me. I believe there have been 5 or 6 different extension agreements modifying the terms along the way, as well as the lease amounts.
I'm just looking here at the lease that the mayor's referencing. It says commencing the first day of the month following the move of the historic structure, and on the first day of each month thereafter, the chamber shall remit to the village a license fee of $1,000 per month. But then it says the chamber may offset such license fee, the cost of the move of the historic structure to the site and the restoration thereof, which cost shall be submitted to and approved by the village, but in no event shall such credit exceed $140,000. So I couldn't tell from this whether those payments were ever actually made or it was structured so that it was going to be that, but you're paying that you can take credit for the payments you're making on the money borrowed to move the building. I don't know if we have that history.
Even I was not here in 1988.
It looks from the agreement, like, I mean, did you look at that? That's on page 4, like that's what was going on.
Yeah,
And
if
I don't
can-
know what happened after that. At some point, those loans were forgiven.
Right.
And then what happened to the payments, does anybody know? I don't.
Yeah, so Karen, do we have a history of payments? I know we have the agreement, but if payments were made or if they were forgiven for some reason?
If the payments were forgiven, they would have reflected that in the minutes, and I have not seen anything. It was $1,000 a month until the lease was changed, I don't know how many years later.
Yeah.
But that would have been reflected in the minutes by, the Board of Trustees would be the only ones who could say, you know, you do not have to pay the $1,000 per month, it's only, you know, you're forgiven.
Okay.
And I have not seen anything in the minutes.
All right. Is there a
It
way
was
of
actually
checking?
in the agreement, Tom, though.
No, I see it in the agreement, I read it.
So
I'm-
it wouldn't be in the minutes necessarily,
No,
because they
well-
put that in the agreement.
Yeah, no, my question is there a way of looking to see if they were paid as opposed to, I understand about the board has to forgive them, but is there a record of payment or non-payment?
We wouldn't have those records anymore because of the retention schedule, but if they were not paid, I know it would have been reflected in the minutes, because
Okay.
prior clerks before me took very good, you know, had very good records, that's why I'm able to find a lot of these. So I would assume, you know, I can't say for sure, but I would think that all these payments were made.
Well, candidly, what occurred in the past, if we can ever figure it out, really makes no difference, because we're actually now looking to go forward. Assuming that my numbers are correct, even at $1,000 a month, that means that the rent as a percentage of expense is 0.00324, which, as an individual who has his own business and pays his own rent, I'd love to have that percentage. Now, using, and I do have to compliment the chamber on all the activities that they do for the village. And the question then becomes, should in fact the executive director be the one who is the person that does all those activities, or should we do the converse, what prior boards have done by outsourcing certain tasks to Conkel? Should we in fact have a village employee who would be the interface with the Chamber of Commerce and then explore that person's job title to do more recruitment, development, and the like. So I think the building may be one issue, but I believe that the village should explore what it needs to have, because some of the commentary that I've heard about businesses moving, coming in, how do we wind up? And I did do a certain amount of research about other municipalities having a business development plan. That is just a consideration for the time being that I raise, as this is going to be a new day and a new board. Now, with the commentary with regard to the casino being used as apples to apples and oranges to oranges, I think we have many different fruits in that basket that we have to parse, because the casino has, I believe, a 60-day termination clause, one which I do not see being in the lease agreement with the chamber, which to a certain extent one may want to consider. So do I think that the chamber should have a lease or an extension? Yes. Do I think that we should use it going forward and not looking backward? But I believe that if Mr. Donnelly is using as a benchmark other facilities in the village, they should be treated comparably with a 60-day termination clause. Thank you.
It is my understanding that the casino doesn't have any paid members on their board, that everybody's a volunteer. Same thing goes for the Garden City Historical Society. In fact, the casino, my understanding, because I'm the liaison to the casino, has to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars to do renovations to that facility. So, again, it's not apples and apples, right? And I agree with you, Bruce.
Mr. Mayor, though, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we do both interior and exterior. I don't believe the casino does exterior.
Well, they're doing a new roof, so that's exterior, right?
Okay.
They're doing mechanical, which is interior, and they'll be doing some foundation work. So again, I'm not comparing the scope of your work to their work. You made a statement that we're pretty much equal to these other entities that the village owns. And I'm saying, well, it's not exactly the same, right? Because you get a salary, I believe, right? Maybe some other members of your organization get a salary. The members of those boards do not get paid, they're volunteers, right? So the money they raise goes to maintain those facilities for the village.
And the chamber runs, including the promenades, the Belmont, the parades, all of the events we run are totally free to the public.
True.
And the money we raise, that's where it goes.
Well, let me explain what my position is. I want you to stay in business. I want you to continue doing what you're doing. However, I'm at the point where I'm figuring out, based on what the village is paying out, in terms of police overtime, sanitation, it costs the village. We're subsidizing your organization. Right now, right now the village is not subsidizing the Garden City Historical Society or the casino, right? But we are certainly subsidizing the Chamber of Commerce. Let me finish. Again, we're just looking to see if there's a fair market leasing fee or rent, whatever you want to call it, that we can go forward with. Because right now, you're asking for a zero rent. And I think that's rather audacious.
I asked for equity, you're correct. All I would say is, if you looked at our P&L from last year, it ended in, we didn't have December, so we were at a $19,000 deficit for the year. We're dead broke, so it would be the end of the Chamber of Commerce.
Mr. Donnelly, in 2019, your income was $369,706.
Yeah.
In 2020, because of COVID, it went down to $135,328. During that period of time, both years, 2019 and 2020, your salary payouts were $107,000 each year. No reduction in salaries. So again, many businesses have weathered the COVID pandemic. I myself, I run my own business. I had to take no salary for 1 year to make sure that my employees got paid. And thank God for the PPP loan, because that was the salvation of my firm. I would have to put the key in the door last year if I didn't get that PPP loan. And I don't know how they did it, but I thank the government for doing that. Again, we're here to discuss the rent, we're here to discuss the lease agreement, and that's what's up for renewal.
If I could, just one
If you look at the tax
final.
returns, it does not show the amount that the chamber got in PPP money.
No, I didn't discuss the PPP loan that they got.
Did you get a PPP?
Yeah, we did.
How much did you receive?
We got 3 months,
You got $40,000.
yeah. But it is, all of our fundraising, and you're correct, Mr. Mayor, that we didn't reduce our salaries. Those were the most difficult years because we worked with businesses who really did not have the expertise on PPP loans, on federal loans, on small business loans. We worked with every one of them to keep them alive those years. So,
Just getting back to the rent issue, do we have any estimate? I had a chance to go take a look at the space. It's kind of a unique space. Do we have the market value for the rent, what it should be?
Yeah, the rent ranges from $25 a square foot to $45. Current market rents in Nassau County for office space.
And what would $25 be for this space?
$1,400 approximately.
Does that include the upstairs space? I didn't see the upstairs.
I just calculated 700, they have 700 square feet, gross square area, that they use as an office space.
Dennis?
Mr. Donnelly, did you find particularly during the pandemic, did you get enough members volunteering to do things? Because the other chambers that I mentioned, including Westbury Park Place, that I was a member of, it's volunteers.
well,
They do everything.
just so you understand, we have a board of directors, an executive committee, a board of directors, and membership. All of the board of directors and the executive committee are volunteers. All of our members volunteer for very various things. We have the Easter Car Parade coming up. It's run by volunteers. So we do have a lot of volunteers.
Do you know what the square footage is on the first floor, your space?
I do not, it's about the size of that table.
It's bigger than that, because I was just there with you.
Not much bigger.
But it is small, that's what I'm just trying to, get a sense of what would be fair. Is it, but.
It definitely is, $1,000 a month for the space is definitely, you can't get an office space
Have you been
at
in the
that
building?
location for $1,000. There's nothing else there that you can get. So it's certainly the market value is at the least the bottom of the range that the mayor just gave us, the 1,500, 1,400.
I wanted to get a sense of what the first floor space was and then multiply it by the 25. Because I'm thinking the 700 might include upstairs, which may not really. I think there's someone that has an office up there, but it's a very small space. I don't know who's been in there recently.
So even if it's 500, it's $1,000.
Would it make sense to maybe look for 1 year, and we'll revisit in a year, but we come up with a number? I don't know what the number may be. Is it 1,000, is it 1,400? I don't know what that number is.
Well, that's my recommendation. My
Right.
recommendation was that in 1988, they were paying $1,000. In 1988, this is 2022. So even with inflation, they're way ahead of the game.
I don't
My
know
concern-
that they were, for
Well,
the
look,
history,
my-
because of
no,
the
but my-
papers said they were.
But wait a minute, my concern is this, that we're paying taxpayer dollars for additional overtime for police and for sanitation. That's the concern I have. And why is that? We're not doing that for the casino, we're not doing that for the Guards and Historical Society. That's the real question.
I like hearing everything tonight, Mayor. I like Terry's recommendation that we come up with a number, reevaluate it to keep them healthy, because we want them to survive and do well, and do a lot of great things for the village. And, as far as the promenades, I know we're cleaning up and we use the police, but it's a nice thing to do for the village in support of all the businesses and restaurants. That's my take on the whole thing.
Candidly, as somebody who pays rent and has done for a long period of time. I read the law journal, and if a law firm was to rent an office out, which is basically 11 feet by 15 or 20 feet, which is at least half the size of the first floor, you're going to be, somewhere between $1,100 and $1,500. So candidly, $1,000 a month is really...
I think $1,000 a month is reasonable. I'm not down, but I just want to know that I'm listening to what was presented, and are they totally broke right now where it could put them under? That's what I'm wondering. Because that's what I heard from...
Part of the problem with totally broke is about what was the size of the fish that got away. And in this particular case, if 2019 and 2020 returns were in front of us, and to a certain extent, I'm assuming most of the income to the chamber is from the events that are coming forward. There are ebbs and flows that in the springtime, with the other activities that are coming, whether it be the Pineapple Bowl or whatever else, I think there's going to be a substantial rebound to their finances. So if Trustee Deegan is amenable to a 1 year, let's go take a look at it, then it does not appear that it will be an undue burden going forward. And quite candidly, I suspect that Mr. Donnelly, if our predictions are wrong, knows his way to come back here.
I think that's much more reasonable if we just resolve that one issue that's on the table tonight, because I think there's a lot of issues surrounding the subsidies to the events that go on. And it's something that I think we need to discuss for the longer term. Is that the way things should be positioned? Is that how they should be paid for? But tonight, it's just the rent. I think we all agree, and I'm certain I know from a review of area rents, that $1,000, $1,100 to get a space to set up your computer that's a mile from the courts is like, you won't get it.
Right.
And so I think we know that the $1,000 is a below market rent, but I don't know why at this juncture we wouldn't keep it so that we can just look at all the issues going forward, the whole relationship.
Yeah, I'm also concerned that, again, we have information from Irene Blue regarding the cost of expenses for the village. I'm concerned about, spending those taxpayer dollars really, really seriously. I'm really concerned about that. I think $1,000 is a very reasonable rent for the chamber going forward, and I think we should revisit it in a year's time. That's a good idea. Ralph, do you have any comments on this? You good? You want to say anything?
Are we not,
You're chicken.
the other issues on the finances, because everything's going for the permits for Belmont and all the promenades is on for today. Are we not changing anything on that?
I don't think we should change anything at this time on that. I think as a board, we should look at the issues from an overall point of view of the Chamber of Commerce and how we are, if we are subsidizing them in different ways, and is this the policy that we want to continue going forward? But I don't think we should stop everything quickly before we all have a chance to gather all the facts.
I agree. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Thank you. John Wilton. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Merchant Retail and Business Director. I think I'm going to try to clear up. First of all, for those of you that just got seated, congratulations. I truly salute you. And for those of you that have been sitting, I clearly understand the dedication that you have to go through. Clearly get it. You're my 9th mayor that I've been under. I'm the longest seated director of the Chamber of Commerce you've ever been sitting. So I have the privilege of working with 8 other mayors. To clear up some of the ambiguity, and I'll try to do this, I'll try to compress everything, but to clear up some of the ambiguity. The $5,000 payment that was made in 2002 was money that was due that hadn't been paid in the past. that lingered from 1998. I can't clearly tell you, can only tell you from memory. I probably have notes somewhere. Be that as it may, as we went forward, each mayor and each board made different decisions. Gary Fishberg was here, and Peter B's firm took over, and we changed the negotiations on the term and the length and the dollar amount. I don't know if you know what I do for a living. By application, I'm commercial real estate. My office is on 7th Street. Of the last 21 retail leases in Garden City, I've done 19 of them. I got a pretty good, clear understanding. So let's clear up some issues. One, $87,000 was collected for the promenade, but we only cleared 9,000 of that. The rest was built back into the operations, about 44 to 5,000 each Friday. Pineapple Ball was 367, our net was 50. But on top of that net, besides salaries, insurance, printing, banners, all the mechanical stuff, all of the things to run all the events, not just the promenades. I'm glad to hear, by the way, that we're thinking about not doing promenades. My wife would be very upset. I've given up the last 8 years of every Friday night for the promenades. Okay, she would be delighted that we can go forward with it. But be that as it may, I think you used a very interesting term, and I wrote it down. We're subsidizing the chamber. I don't know if that's true, because some of the sponsors are the business, obviously the business owners, but more importantly, the people that own the property that are not in this community. Some of them don't even live in this state. And they're sponsoring it because they realize the investment that's coming back through the chamber is a value to their business and helps merit the dollar amount of the square footage that our very lucky community is. We had 10, I said this the last 3 meetings ago, we had 10 vacancies in the village. Our current office vacancy rate is 11.2%, the highest it's been in 44 years. So I think we have to look at this. The chamber is not just you used a very good point before, that we're not a regular chamber. We're not. I can truly say that the chamber during the COVID, we were the psychiatrist between the tenant and the owner of the property. The initial response was pay your rent, pay half, landlord accept half, landlord don't try to claw back half. And it was a very tenuous time. Some landlords were very dynamic, some landlords were not. As we all know, those that have rent, landlords have short arms and long pockets. It's the nature of the beast. Something that we have to live with. So I think that we're a very different chamber, and I think that I'm boots on the ground every Friday night. I can tell you I have had dozens, hundreds of people come up to me and say, John, this is the only community that does this. It's so great that you guys do this. I wish my community would do this. What this does is, this helps our little garden bloom. I use that term a lot. But it's really something amazing to see, not just the promenades, I'm referencing the promenades now, but also the vitality of our tax base. Those businesses are our commercial tax base. I mentioned we had 10 vacancies. Think about that, 10. And luckily we filled them all up again. The reason we filled them up again was the landlords incentivized some of the brokers to pay even a bigger commission to do it quicker, or got out there and worked with the incoming tenants by giving them different forms of lucrative lease beginnings, how they came into the system and gave them lesser and then higher escalations as we went forward. So I think the salary part of it is a minuscule part of what's going on at the chamber. Granted, I don't know if we're not the only chamber that has people that are paid. I believe, if my memory is correct, I believe there's 2 or 3, 2 in Nassau and 1 in Suffolk that have paid executives on their board. But anyway, be that as it may, I don't think that's germane to what's going on here. Truthfully, I'm telling you, if we're charged $1,000 a month, it will be a burden. Just plain and simple. Right now, it's very difficult to collect dues. For the promenade, think about this. You mentioned you're a business owner. You mentioned that if you didn't get PPP money, you couldn't go going forward. Well, we're going to go out and try to ask the people, the businesses, and the sponsors, and the owners, and the landlords to contribute so we can run them. Hey, times have been tough in reality. So we still need the funds. If we still collectively, my fellow directors, we want to put a band out, face paint the balloon people, give away stuff to the kids, those costs aren't going to dissipate. They're going to, as a matter of fact, they've gone up. If you even go on some of the websites that sell some of the merchandise that we use, they've gone up 12, 14%, probably 20 by the time we start doing it. So I'm not imploring, but I'm saying as a person that
I've lived in the village for 38 years. Okay, I've done this promenade for 8 years, all right? I've been through 18 years of mayors. I think that if you collectively look at it, you can look at all the reasons it doesn't work. You can look at all the reasons. Subsidizing, I think, is the wrong term. I really truly think that you...
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that the village is really not your financial partner.
I'm not asking you to be it.
I know, and I don't want you to be my partner.
But let me ask you a question.
But I have to provide services.
Right.
When you do an event, we have to provide additional police service. We have to provide sanitation. These are the things we have to provide. We don't even charge a permit fee. Am I correct, Mr. Juvenile? Not even a permit fee.
No, we do not.
Right, so, again, there are other villages that will charge a permit fee to have an event. We don't even do that. So, again, I understand where you're coming from. We're trying to set... No, I do.
No, because you keep going back about the police and village services.
Because that's my concern.
I understand, but then my concern is, I also ran the Jay Gallica tournament for the 18 years that we did it with Tony Randy. My concern, truthfully, is, my retort would be, well, are you subsidizing the police and the aides for the parades, for the turkey trot, et cetera, et cetera? It's not apples to apples, but it's reality to reality. You may not look at it in that way.
I don't look at it that way. When you made the comment, or Mr. Donald made the comment, that we were making a comparison to the Garden City Historical Society and to the casino, well, that's apples and oranges, in my opinion.
Okay, and I didn't bring it up, did I? Okay.
I didn't bring it up, but I'm bringing it up.
Okay.
Right? So again, I'm thinking, I want to move on, we have a lot to do this evening. We want to set the rent. I think we've all discussed that $1,000 would be the most reasonable rent going forward. Am I correct? Can we make a decision on this, Peter?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for your time.
Just 1 second, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is my second tour of duty.
And I salute you.
So I
Captain going up to the
I was here in 97 to 2001.
Okay.
And I very much appreciate the efforts that the chamber, yourself, and others have made.
Right.
Because the revitalization of the small villages was something that occupied the board during the terms that I was trustee.
Right.
While the mayor has voiced in terms that you differ with regard to subsidizing, I still believe that the core issue that we need to address is what is an equitable rent. And just that one issue, I believe that the calculation that we had as a real estate person, if we were to ask you what would be if an office or an attorney or somebody else wanted to rent 1,000 square feet, what it would be, my suspicions are that it would be greater than $1,000 a month. So in order not for the village to be an eleemosynary institution, we do have to have a fair rent. And if you believe that $1,000 a month is not fair, then we need to have some actual documentation of what the other rents would go to, and then we can revisit it again. Is that satisfactory, sir?
You can call me John, you don't have to call me sir. No. Okay, it's not because it's not the result that I'm looking for. Also keep in mind, throughout the course of these 8 years with the promenade, it was always introduced as the Village of Garden City and the Chamber of Commerce sponsor. It was never the Chamber of Commerce. It was a balance of the village and the chamber being a uniformed, committed, dedicated team to benefit, I believe, the tax base, the businesses.
So we were your partner.
You were my partner because we felt we were obligated to say the Village of Garden City was also committed to this.
I agree, we have to work together. There's no question we have to work together. But I didn't write the lease agreement. The lease agreement was written in 1988. It was very clear. There have been subsequent agreements, I believe, that Peter B. will investigate.
When Mr. Torino
we need
was...
to set the rent, sir. I have to move on.
Okay, I'll leave on this point. When Mr. Torino was a trustee, the rent was $300 because the trustees that were sitting at that time didn't hold our feet to the fire on the lease agreement. They just made business
We
decisions.
also had a very large vacancy situation, a lot of students.
I can go back and tell you, I've been sitting in that office for 26 years. I'm really pretty up on the street. Really wasn't as bad as you think, but anyway, thank you so much for your
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Is there a motion to set the chamber rent at $1,000 per month going forward for a period of 1 year?
I made that motion.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Are there any other citizen comments on agenda items? Please state your name and address. Please come up.
Jonathan DeBridge, 90 Huntington Road. I coach 4 Little League teams, 3 of which primarily practice or play at Stewart Field. Little League, as was stated, starts this Saturday and Sunday. We're then off for 2 weeks till after spring break. If you want, it's up to the board's prerogative. If they want to do a study around parking, I would respectfully consider that maybe consider doing it after spring break to allow for time for communication, as well as allow for time for check with the school district about what the alternatives are. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Citizen comments on agenda items? In the audience? How about on Zoom, Karen?
Anybody on Zoom have any comments on agenda items?
I do.
Go ahead, Althea.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just would like to go back. First of all, I someday will write the story of the chamber. I'm a life resident. I've been a civic member of the chamber for 49 years. And I was the executive director of the chamber for 39 years and was very instrumental in the move of the chamber and supervised a lot of the finances. And I have to say, I cannot remember, and I would love it if you can, dig up those records about the rent fee, because I never ever recall $1,000 being paid. And certainly not in 1988, because the toll lodge, and it's the toll lodge itself, was not moved until March of 1989. And at that time, as Dennis had mentioned, we engaged 12 banks to provide grants for the chamber in order to pay for the move and all the expenses involved in the renovation. We did work with the village, and at that time, I seem to recall that $300 was the amount that we originally paid, but I never remember in all the 33 years that I was involved with the move and the renovation of the chamber, ever paying $1,000. And just one comment too, Mayor, that in your update in this week's column, you did mention that the cost to the village was $35,000 a year. And of course, to hold chamber events for the village. And at one point, and perhaps Mr. B, you can go back and get this information, or Mrs. Altman, perhaps you can. I know that we were required by the village to pay $5,000 to the village to subsidize those costs to the village for a particular event. So I would hope that that record is available somewhere, but I did want to make that point because we were not always just free and clear. And, we worked with the village over the years, certainly in my 39 years with the chamber, and the toll lodge was the 8th office of the chamber. And when I came to the chamber in 1977, between 1977 and 1989, the chamber had 5 different temporary offices. And so, of course, it was the aim of the chamber through the Blue Ribbon Committee that we engaged and set up to find a permanent home for the chamber. And I don't want to go back because I know you have to move on, but I will tell the story somehow, some way, about the move of the chamber and how it all came about, how the building was actually donated to the chamber. And it is an historic building, which I'm sure you all know because it is the last remaining vestige of the historic Vanderbilt Motor Parkway. But I just wanted to mention that $5,000 that I know that the chamber, and I can't remember whether it was per event, and I think it was, that we had to pay back to the village in lieu of the cost that the village had to put forth for the events. So I really have to back up everything that Dennis had said. I'm very aware of all of that information, and I would be happy to meet with anybody to discuss anything that occurred in my 39 years with the chamber. And there's a lot of story there, and there's a lot of reasons why I believe that the chamber. Oh, I did want to make the point that the chamber has been recognized over the years as and this goes from the time I came to the chamber in 1977, as the largest and most innovative chamber on Long Island. I believe it is still the largest chamber on Long Island. And it has been recognized also as the most innovative. And we not only have promoted the business community and supported the business community, but we have promoted the entire village through television appearances, through media, magazine articles, newspaper articles over the years, to inform all of the residents about the importance of the business community and working toward the vitality of business community as well as the residential community. And that has been the aim and mission of the chamber throughout the years. And I feel that $1,000 maybe is a little high based on what I know the expenses to have been over the many years that I was there. And I'm sure that you're not aware of all those many expenses. But anyway, it will be what it will be. But I just did want to comment on some of those items.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Karen, do you want to make any comments on this?
I'll try to make it quick, because I know you want to move on. But Althea did mention $5,000, and I believe Belmont started maybe 10 years ago, when they had the first, it was called the Belmont Festival, and we did work with, actually Belmont. There was a festival committee, and they offered to have Belmont on first Friday of June, and they offset the cost. The Belmont Festival paid $5,000. I don't believe it came from the chamber specifically.
I
but
believe
those
it came from the racing organization.
Right, the racing organization did donate, but those payments stopped when the organization no longer, I think that's about 4 years now. So the chamber really did not donate the money.
Thank you very much.
I believe that.
Are there any other comments?
All right, stand corrected.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. Althea, Tom O'Brien here. I just want to thank you for all your years of service. I know what you have put into the village to help make it what it is today. And even though the rent is coming into play, we'll be sure to keep our eyes open to make sure that they stay healthy.
Thank you.
Any other comments on Zoom?
Anybody else on Zoom before we move on?
Okay. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the previous Board of Trustees meetings. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 10, 2022 budget meeting?
I make a motion we approve.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 16, 2022 budget meeting?
I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes.
Second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 17, 2022 regular Board of Trustees meeting?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's keep going. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 24th, 2022 special board meeting?
I'll make a motion, we approve those minutes.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now let's move on to the consent calendar. Is there any trustee who would like to remove an item from the consent?
A special meeting.
Special meeting?
Yes, we did the special, and then we just need some,
Budget. The last one. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 24th special? Is that the special budget meeting?
Yes.
Budget meeting, yeah. I'll make a motion, we approve those minutes.
Just to make sure that there's clarification, I have abstained from each one of those motions.
Trustees abstain.
Yes.
Carol will make that.
So we have some abstentions.
No.
Yes.
I want to say nothing.
Okay. We now move on to the consent calendar. Is there any trustee who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none, I now ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Make a motion?
Second? All in favor? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Let's go on now to the, any comments on non-agenda items? Non-agenda items, we'll open it up to the people in the audience.
Just on the parking issue, I was gonna get up before, just keep in mind that the Marine Corps has 9 maneuvers a year on Saturday and Sunday. Those guys come in, park their cars. I represented 555 Stewart Avenue for 17 years, and we worked out an agreement with the landlord where he let them park their cars there. But keep that in mind, that the Marine Corps, they do have maneuvers, and sometimes those maneuvers, our fine Marines get on buses and go away. They cause a park there for 2 days. So just keep that in mind when you realize, because if people are forgetting that happens, and that's a reality.
And they're parking in that lot
Yeah.
across the street?
Yeah, if their whole lot's filled,
Yeah.
that lot's filled, and that's why the overflow went to 555.
Yeah, I really wish they wouldn't, it's kind of dangerous to come across.
Keep it in mind, free.
Okay.
Any more comments on non-agenda items?
One quick one. I'd like to offer an invitation, any of the trustees who would like to actually see the inside of the chamber, you're welcome at any time. Just give us a call, make sure we're there. 1, and 2, I would make a suggestion that, 2 suggestions. 1, that the board appoint someone as a liaison to the chamber, which we've had for many years. And lastly, I would suggest that the executive committee of the chamber meet with a group of trustees who are willing to meet with them and go over all the chamber stuff. I don't have to be there.
Thank you for the offer, Mr. Donovan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph, do you want to give us an update on the lead service line issue, the inventory? And I think at a prior meeting there had been some discussion as we know more information whether we'd be able to consider either reducing permit fees or waiving permit fees. I don't know if there's any update on that.
Just a little math, Trustee Flanagan, I did pursue those fees. There was a $500 fee from DPW initially, and then depending on the size of the road opening, it could be another $500, $750, or $1,000. So the low end of the residential is $1,335, and the high end is $1,835. On the commercial is charged $750 as their fee instead of $500. So theirs range from $1,585 to $2,085. So that would be the cost. And the building department also has a $335 fee in there. That's why I would add that in. So it's 500 plus 500 plus 335, or 500 plus 750 plus 335. So that's how you get the numbers. So if the board were to waive those fees, that would be a minimum of $1,300 per household up to $1,500 per household, or $1,600. The inventory on the lead lines, it was, I updated the H2M, the person who's doing our GIS mapping for the lead service lines. I gave him Mrs. Alvey's mod section historical document, so he went from assumption to clarifying that's exactly what's into the 1-inch lead service lines.
Did we already have that? And just so everyone knows that Susan Alvey was involved with the Historical Society and still remains involved and has provided some documents from when the Mott houses were built advertising that they were lead service lines.
Right, so the village has been working with H2M they gathered all of our records, any records we have from building department, any historical documents related to water mains or sewer mains, and the years they put in. They also took records from Nassau County as to the age of homes, and based on those records, they have created a map which creates an assumption of which service lines were lead. And the only time they override that is if there's a newer document, like a building department permit, that supersedes it. So, and there are some areas that are known, where they're grayed out on the map. I would assume they're lead since we don't have anything to tell us otherwise. So that map we've basically finalized now the next steps. We have to work out with the health department, where we go with that. We are getting permits. Mr. Giovanelli could probably report some people coming in to replace lead service lines. We had a gentleman last week. He dug it up. It was lead, as we suspected. In fact, H2M is getting that sample from him, because one of the next steps we're thinking about is adding orthophosphates to the water system, which is a known way of coating the pipes. It's used in many major cities. And that would put a protective shield between the pipes themselves and the water flowing through them. We're talking to Nassau County Health Department about that. That's something we might be able to do proactively until the lines are replaced. But that also requires a few months of pumping, heavy pumping, which we some
These lead lines are from the house to the service main?
So the water mains down the middle of the streets or on sides of the streets where the hydrants are, they're using ductile steel concrete. The tap off the main is usually, in the old days, was lead going to the curb stop, and then from the curb stop into the home. They were probably all lead at one point. Newer homes have replaced, people who tear down homes and rebuild or replace their lines, they usually replace from the house just to the curb stop. They usually don't consider the street or the jurisdiction, but that is owned by the resident as well. And in some cases, there's also a third piece of metal. It's called I forget the name of it now. It's a small piece attached to the main, a gooseneck. That's also lead. It's a short piece. So there's usually either 2 or 3 pieces. As I've mentioned before, at EAB meetings, when the village updates a water main, which we do every year or two, we replace the entire line from the main to the curb stop, and then we notify the homeowner with copper, and we notify the homeowner if they have a lead service line. And it's up to the homeowner at that point to take action to change it.
Are you keeping a record of all these service lines you're finding that are lead?
Well, that's the point of the inventory.
Well, in terms of the measurements.
Yes.
It sounds like the Mott section has quite a few.
The Mott section was largely built before World War II ended. I spoke to a homeowner today. The house was built in 1931. I bought from the original owner. He has a whole house filter, but he has lead lines. So he has no lead detected because of his whole house filter. He called me about dioxane, strangely enough. So yes, the lead lines usually have to do with dates. There's also lead solder in 1985 or 86. The rule changed that solder had to be going to be 5% lead. So the older solder that breaks off in the line might end up in the little aerator in your faucet. You should take those off and clean them out once in a while. There could also be lead in paint and utensils and pots that people cook in. So there are a lot of sources of lead. Most people associate it with paint in past decades. So by and large, it's lead service lines. The best solution is to remove the lead. H2M conducted a lot of tests in the Mott section. We handed out leaflets to about 663 homes, about maybe 120 to 130 people tested. There are some who haven't. There's some stragglers. I get 1 or 2 a day. I send it off to H2M. They send them 3-liter containers, which is the new EPA standard for testing versus the 250 milliliter containers New York State sending out. So
out of 663 homes?
About a fourth of them.
A quarter of them?
Yeah,
were positive.
but there were also, no, that's how many tested, no, positive, no. Out of the last records I had on positive, about 5%, we tested about 523, and about 23 or so came in. I don't have the latest numbers, that's an old number, but the numbers that we were getting that were tested by the labs and detected high for lead were about 5%. There's another group of people who are below the actual level. I don't have that percentage. And we have testing going on all over town. It's not just the Mott section. But the Mott section was an area of concentration because there, in the early days, there were a few hot spots in Kingsbury and Russell. So they asked us to do something special there to notify people. And then subsequently, on February 16th, the letter went out to all the residents, identifying that you should know if you have lead lines and do testing and take precautions, appropriate precautions.
I guess, one question that comes to mind is where we are in the inventory, if we are going to consider reducing or waiving permit fees would want to have some sense as to how many people may be replacing their lead service lines. So that would go to the number of how many lead service lines are there in the village. You may not know that on the spot, but it's something we want to get close to. I think that would be what we need to know to determine whether it's feasible to waive the fees.
I can get that information.
Another question is, what percentage of homeowners have now done at least the free testing offered through New York State? Do we know that? Are we getting those numbers? I know we had asked residents to report them through our water issues email, but are we also getting them from the county, and do we know how many people have tested?
I have to get that number for you. I can send out an email tomorrow, but back in November, December timeframe into January, about 800 people had called for the test. About 450 or so had results. I don't know if everyone has followed through on the test, so I really don't know if I have to get that from the state or the county. In the early days, the state and the county would not share the data with us because of privacy concerns. I spoke to the lab in Port Washington. I assume he was the owner, I don't remember at this point. I asked him to contact the people he sent tests to, the results to, and asked them to forward them to us. So I immediately took those results and forwarded them to H2M in one direction and Nassau County Health Department in another, so that we all had the same information at the same time. That's where my statistics came from, ultimately was the state. So I'm sure that when we did the Mont section saturation, so another 150 or so people responded. So I can get you more statistics on it all, I just don't have them all in my head right now, I'm sorry.
How was the permit fee determined? How was the permit fee determined for the lead lines?
It's a $500 expense.
How was it determined? It's based on hours of inspection?
Oh, I don't know.
How was it determined?
The building permit fee is based on the cost of construction, depending on the length of pipe being removed. That's the building permit for a plumbing permit. The other expenses are from DPW, which is road opening and whatever the other permit is, a $500 and $750 permit fee.
Yeah, because I'm concerned about just waiving it, because it does cost the village money to do this work, to do the inspections, and make sure we're not cutting our nose despite ourselves.
There's at least 2 to 3 inspections required for every application. So.
Well, I think we also have to consider the fact that if you're looking at prospectively the fees lost, that may not be a apples to apples comparison. If we traditionally got $30,000 a year from these kind of fees, and now we're saying, well, 200 people are going to do this, that's $400,000, we're throwing away $400,000. I don't think that's fair from a budget analysis point of view, and I think it's not fair because it ignores the fact that the waiving of these fees is for a greater public good. It's to remove these replacement lines, and if we're going to have lost income, I think we have to consider it in that context, that there is a greater good coming out of it. If waiving these fees creates an incentive to get people to replace those lead lines, then I think that's a significant public good. So I think from a budgetary point of view, it would be relevant to at least know how much was paid for these lead fees in the last 5 years.
Trustee Kelly, I was actually thinking about that today. If not for this event, that revenue wouldn't be there anyway. The water department doesn't rely on the revenue. So therefore, waiving the fees outside of the inspections, which occur as part of our regular salaries, it would not.
So it's not a burden on the village?
It would be a burden on the water department specifically, or the village, I believe, if you waive them.
Would it be a big overtime issue if we really, and the inspections, would you be able to, if a lot of people start replacing their lead surface lines, how are you going to inspect them all?
It's the same routine, day-to-day routine inspections. We can handle it, the village can handle it.
Yeah, it should be no problem.
I believe one of the considerations is that the fee does not cover the actual, or any part of the cost of the replacement, if I understand correctly.
That's correct.
And if there is a street opening, that street opening has to be then capped, covered, and sealed by the homeowner, and that is their
contract.
I agree with Trustee Kelly. This is something for the greater good. This isn't a nice to have. I mean, this is something for the safety for residents.
So ultimately, it's a board decision, since the fees are built into our schedules. So it's a board decision to waive it. I believe, and what was just said by the trustees, it does serve the greater good to waive it or reduce it drastically. Hire a third-party inspector to keep up, as trustee Flanagan suggested.
Yeah, but no, the quantity of inspections, you know.
Yeah,
Doing, let's say, 10,000, it's still a lot of work.
You know, these lead service line replacements, depending which side of the road you're on. If you're on the same side as the hydrant, it's less of a linear foot run and less excavation and restoration. But it could run anywhere from 10 to 12, maybe $15,000.
Yeah, construction costs are much higher than the fees, that's for sure. So I'm not worried about that. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, Ralph, sorry to put you
Yes, sir.
on the spot again.
One here.
On Meadow Street, you did that inspection with the engineers where you put the camera down.
Yes,
Can you give us an update on that one?
Yes.
And so people know there's been a lot of flooding over the years there.
I actually, Mr. Lordy can attest, I sent an update out to the residents on that street. I sent it to the one person, all the rest are copied. So recently, we took the sewer vision truck. We had the mechanics get it in shape, and we gave it over to the water department, it's their asset. And they went out 2 Wednesdays ago, and they ran the camera down the line until it got to the county culvert, and the line was clear, it wasn't damaged, there was no cave-ins. There was a bit of a sinkhole by one home. We thought maybe there might have been a cave in there that was for having water dragging the dirt down, but there wasn't anything. It was in good shape. So based on that, we thought there might be something we could fix there that was causing the problem. The county has also simultaneously cleaned out their culvert that leads to Hempstead Lake. I've been working with Ken Arnold at the county and his team. They've also looked at their culvert, and so the next step we're taking right now is our engineer, John Baroni, has put together an RFP with the help of Mr. Giovanello to do a drainage study of the area. We know how the water flows down Grove and down Garden, and it all ends up at Tremont and College Place, and that's where the low point is. So our goal now is to do an engineering study. Mr. B returned it today with comments, so we plan on making those comment changes and getting it out to engineering firms ASAP. Once we get that proposal back, we will come to the board to ask for money for the engineering study. That study will tell us where are our best opportunities to redirect or capture the water before it gets to the low points. I just want to say publicly, because I don't think people understand this, you really can't build for every storm, but we want to increase the margin sufficiently so that regular rainstorms are no problem, and some of the ones we've seen recently, like Henri and Ida, don't get flooding into people's homes and garages. But there's always going to be severe events like Irene or Sandy where no capacity is enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Any other comments in the audience? How about on Zoom, Karen?
Anybody on Zoom have any more comments?
One thing to add, not to circle back again, but just because I've heard some people are wondering what are we doing with waiving, do you think it's reasonable at the next meeting on the 20th we'll be able to have the information together and decide whether we're going to be able to do anything on the permit fees for the lead service lines?
So I will probably give you the information this week on the suspected amount of lead lines. I think though the problem with the inventory at this point is we only know what's in the street. We don't know each of the homes from the curb stop in, so I would just assume the whole length needs to be replaced. But either way, it's per house, doesn't matter if it's 2 pieces or one, it's still one fee, so I can give you a pretty good estimate.
Any other comments on Zoom?
I have one comment before.
I was about to close the meeting, but you can go, Tom.
I know everyone wants to watch the basketball game, but I just wanted to welcome Larry, Charlie, Bruce, and Mary. You're all going to be assets. Mary, it's a pleasure to continue working with you. But I'm very happy to have you guys on board, and thank you for volunteering your time. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Is there anything else, please? Seeing none, I ask a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion?
2 seconds. All in favor? Meeting is closed. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.